The British historian arrived believing history was already settled. Archives were complete. Footnotes closed. In his mind, the war in the Philippines was a marginal theater, its stories exaggerated by memory and emotion. He came not to listen, but to correct. What followed was not an argument, but a silence, so heavy it rewrote everything he thought he knew. For decades, textbooks described the Pacific War through maps and strategies, names of generals, movements of fleets. Filipino resistance appeared briefly, then disappeared. The historian repeated this framing in lectures across Europe. He believed oral stories were unreliable, shaped by pride and pain. Evidence, he insisted, lived only on paper, in controlled rooms far from tropical heat. The invitation came from a small university in central Luzon, a symposium on wartime memory. He accepted casually, expecting polite agreement. The program listed one local speaker, a 98-year-old Filipino veteran. The historian almost laughed. At that age, memory blurs. Emotion replaces accuracy. He prepared his notes, already certain of the outcome. The venue was modest. No grand hall, no marble floors. Wooden chairs, electric fans humming softly. Students, teachers, a few surviving families of resistance fighters. The historian noticed no press, no cameras. This was not a battlefield of ideas, he thought. It was a courtesy event, a formality before he delivered his conclusions. When the veteran was helped to front, the room changed. He wore no uniform, no medals, just a neatly pressed barong in trembling hands. His eyes were sharp, though alert. He did not carry notes. The moderator asked him one question only. "Lolo, can you tell us what you remember?" The historian leaned back. This, he believed, would be emotional recollection, stories shaped by years of retelling, useful for culture, not for history. He glanced at his watch. The old man stood silently for a long moment, as if measuring the weight of his words. Then he began, softly, without drama. He spoke of hunger first. Not battles, not victories. Hunger so constant it erased fear. He described boiling grass, trading shoes for rice, watching younger boys collapse during marches through the hills. Dates were precise, locations named carefully. He paused often, not from confusion, but restraint. Each word seemed chosen, not remembered. The historian frowned. These details were unusual, too specific. The veteran described a British officer, captured briefly by guerrillas before being transferred. He named the river where it happened, the exact day, the officer's habit of humming while tied. The historian froze. That detail appeared nowhere in official British records. The old man did not look at the historian. He spoke to the room about carrying wounded civilians at night, about burning his own home to keep it from enemy use, about refusing to surrender even when promised safety. There was no anger in his voice, only clarity, as if he were reporting weather. The historian began writing furiously. This was no rambling memory. This was structured, chronological, painfully consistent. He realized the veteran was not trying to prove anything. He was answering the question honestly. That frightened him more than exaggeration ever could, because exaggeration can be dismissed. Precision cannot. The veteran stopped. He said nothing for several seconds, then added one final memory. A mass execution of villagers, unrecorded. No witnesses survived except him. He gave names, ages, the shape of the field. He apologized for forgetting one face. The room was silent. Even the fans seemed louder. The moderator thanked him. There was no applause. None felt appropriate. The historian was asked to respond. He stood slowly. His prepared lecture suddenly felt obscene. He spoke instead about methodology, about the limits of archives. His voice lacked confidence. He realized the old man had not challenged him directly. That made it worse. After the event, the historian approached the veteran privately. He asked how he remembered so much. The old man answered simply, "Because no one wrote it down for us." He explained that memory became responsibility. If he forgot, it would be as if those people never existed. The historian said nothing. That night, The historian reviewed British military logs. He cross-referenced dates, movements, names. Small inconsistencies appeared. Not enough to rewrite official history, but enough to disturb it. Gaps, missing days, redacted lines. The veteran's story did not contradict records. It lived in the spaces they ignored. He realized something uncomfortable. British historians had written war history assuming Filipino silence meant absence. They mistook lack of documentation for lack of experience. The veteran had never been asked before. Not once. No historian had traveled to his village. No archive had collected his voice. The next morning, the historian asked to meet again. He brought maps. The veteran corrected him gently. A hill mislabeled. A path erased. The historian listened. For the first time in his career, he did not interrupt. The power in the room had shifted quietly, without announcement. The historian offered to record the stories. The veteran declined. Not for me, he said. For the children. He asked only that Filipino accounts be placed beside foreign ones, not beneath them. Equal weight, equal dignity. The historian nodded. He felt smaller, but not diminished. At the farewell lunch, no speeches were made. The historian thanked the organizers. He did not defend his earlier position. There was nothing to defend. The experiment had ended. One man came with authority. Another came with memory. Only one carried something irreplaceable. Back in Britain, the historian rewrote his lecture. He removed conclusions. He added questions. He cited oral testimonies alongside documents. Colleagues challenged him. He did not argue. He simply said history is incomplete when written only by those with the power to publish. The veteran passed away months later. Quietly. No headlines. His village held a simple burial. Children who never met him heard his stories through teachers who had listened that day. His words survived not because they were recorded immediately, but because they had finally been respected. The historian returned to the Philippines the following year, not for conferences, for listening. He traveled without assistance. He sat in kitchens, community halls, shaded porches. He heard stories that contradicted none of the truth, but expanded all of it. History grew larger, not weaker. He understood then that war history was never only about battles. It was about endurance, about unnamed decisions made by ordinary people under impossible pressure. Filipinos had not been silent. They had been unheard. In later publications, the historian included a dedication. No name, just a line. To those who carried history when no one was writing. Readers asked who it referred to. He never answered publicly. Some things did not require explanation. Students began questioning older narratives, not rejecting them, but re-examining them. Filipino accounts appeared in footnotes, then chapters. Authorities shifted gradually, without confrontation, exactly how the veteran had spoken. The historian often remembered the old man's apology for forgetting one face. That humility haunted him. In decades of academic debate, he had never heard a historian apologize to history itself. He realized respect was not granted by credentials. It was earned through listening. The veteran had spoken once, not loudly, not angrily, and that single act dismantled decades of quiet dismissal. No monument was built, no apology issued by governments. Yet something changed. Filipino war stories were no longer framed as local color. They were recognized as central, necessary, human. The historian's authority did not disappear. It transformed, from judgment to stewardship, from gatekeeping to responsibility. That transformation did not come from evidence alone, but from witnessing dignity. The veteran never argued with history. He simply stood inside it, unshaken. And in doing so, he reminded everyone present that silence is not absence. It is often endurance. In the end, history did not belong to the one who arrived with books. It belonged to the one who carried it for 98 years, waiting patiently for someone to finally listen.